The ayes have it. Call on members' order of the day number 3.
Local Government Salary Moderation Amendment Bill, first reading.
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, I move the Local Government Salary Moderation Amendment Bill be now read a first time. Mr Speaker, I nominate the Local Government and Environment Committee consider the bill, and thank you to the member who has just interjected. This is a honey of a bill. In fact, it's a very, very exciting night for this member in the House, because it's a totally new experience for me as a Member of Parliament. Never in my many years, not as long as Morris and Williamson and a few others, but in my many years of being in this House, I have never before had a member's bill drawn from the ballot. So you can imagine the excitement I felt when the ecstasy when this bill was drawn out of the ballot. I have introduced ministers' bills, very good ones and not so good ones. I have voted for many other people's bills and have been very, very proud to do so. But this is the first opportunity I have had to have a member's bill in my name. And you know, this whole member's bill opportunity is very, very addictive, because there is many, many more bills to come from this side of the House. We are very excited about being able to make a difference in New Zealand by being able to introduce bills that people are keen on. And of course, what we have managed to do, Mr Speaker, is to shame the National Party into lodging something like 14 members' bills over the last 2 weeks. But I want to start with this bill and thank the writer and author of the bill who did the work for me, Charles Chauvel. And he is an asset to any party in Parliament. He has the ability to write legislation for us in a very short time, and he does most of the law drafting for us on this side of the House. We don't have a bevy of law drafters to do the work for us, unlike Mr Ockenval, Habeas Corpus Amendment Bill, where, of course, when the Law Commission provides a report, they also write the entire bill and hand it over to the government of the day. And Mr Ockenval was very lucky that all he had to do was pick it up and table it. Well, in this case, Charles Chauvel, he was the author of this bill. I want to thank my colleagues who have supported me in this bill. I want to thank the Maori Party, who've said they support this bill, and New Zealand First, who have given me assurance that they are supporting. In fact, they have a similar bill in the ballot, and they are looking to move an SOP should it get to the committee stage and back into this House. The Green Party have also indicated support for it. I'm unsure as to where the National Party sit on this bill. But I am also very pleased with the community who brought this issue to politicians' attention. And this bill is aimed at helping local government, not hindering it. It's aimed at providing an evidence-based approach to setting remuneration for CEOs of local government. It's aimed at providing a transparent accountability mechanism that will ensure that it's very open to the public as to what is happening when it comes to the setting of pay and conditions and remuneration. And it gives the ratepayers some confidence that there has been put in place a process where an independent rigour has been applied to salaries and conditions, and is able to be compared to others in a similar situation. I also think it provides protection for elected councillors from public criticism. And where did it all start? Well, it started in December 2011, Mr Speaker, following the devastating earthquake in Christchurch. The Christchurch City Council, through a very small committee of councillors, including the Mayor, set the remuneration for their CEO at an additional $68,000 a year, an increase in salary of 14%. That took his pay to $538,529. Many councillors had no knowledge of how and why this figure was reached. It was done secretly, and it was considered by many local people to be an obscene increase in CEO salary. And when you consider the conditions that people in Christchurch faced in December 2011, they were still without their homes, they had lost their jobs, they'd lost family, some of them still had no water and no sewerage, they were working long hours, some of them had no pay and hard work, and they had all the pressures that communities had on them. They could see no justification for a pay increase, that was 1.5 times more than the average salary at that time. And it was not helped by the CEO taking an overseas holiday during the earthquake, spending time during work time at the golf course, and then going out and adopting a very public and arrogant justification towards the pay increase that he got. And for some, it was the last straw. But Christchurch was not alone in this respect. There have been disquiet in many local government areas at the remuneration and how it is set for CEOs. We had the case in Kapiti of a pay increase of $44,000. Although I understand there were different circumstances, there was still not the transparency and openness that ratepayers have been expecting. And you see different approaches taken by different councils when it comes to setting CEO remuneration, pay and conditions. Some have small committees that are done in private, some have full councils, and some pay their CEOs right up to the top of the market in the private sector, which is some of the complaints that have been. Others pay under. There is no consistency. So what is this bill about? This bill is aimed at ensuring, from a hit-and-miss affair that we have now, the aim is to ensure there is a uniform approach and transparency which is absent now. And what I want you to do is to compare what happens with the public sector and how we set remuneration and terms and conditions and appointments in the public sector. To begin with, the Cabinet does not appoint a small group of ministers to sit around and interview CEOs and performance review them and set remuneration. It is actually done at arm's length, because under the State Services Act 1988, the conditions of employment of a CE are determined in each case by agreement between the State Services Commissioner and the Chief Executive in the first instance. But the Commissioner then obtains the agreement of the Prime Minister and the Minister of State Services before finalising the conditions of employment with the Chief Executive. The process has been tried and true, based on experience and appropriately moderated between other CEs, looking at what their responsibilities are, the size of the job, and against other benchmarks. It provides an appropriate evidence as to why a CE has received the level of remuneration. Well, this bill amends the Local Government Act to add a requirement that terms and conditions, including remuneration of a Chief Executive of a local authority, must be approved in advance by the State Service Commissioner. At the outset, the condition of employment will be determined between the local authority and the Chief Executive. That can be done in whatever way that the local authority decides. But before it is finalised, announced and decided, the TLA must obtain written consent of the State Services Commissioner to any such agreement or any variation of that agreement. There would then be a requirement on the State Service Commissioner to ensure that the remuneration is comparable to those in a similar job, size and so on. I think it gives a very clear and transparent path using the expertise that is available in the State Service Commission. And having been a Minister of State Services, I understand the work that they do and the very high quality of that in assisting a government in setting remuneration, pay and conditions. and I think it would be a very good tool for local government to be able to use. And when the comparisons are done by the State Service Commissioner, they can then say, we know the Rangitikei Council is paying this amount because it is comparable to a similar size, a similar job size. It is not way up above the level they ought to be. It's not set against unknown benchmarks. It is done in a proper, transparent and open and fair way. I commend this bill to the House, Mr Speaker.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, this